Um, and some names, it's difficult to know with names, but I'm very honored to be in the association and presence of all the esteemed Vaishnavas, even if not in person, Zoom, because we're at least trying to glorify Krishna, then according to your purity, then it's on the spiritual platform, and the spiritual platform is not impeded by physical distance. So just please let me know if any problems with audio or anything. But so far you can hear clearly.
Yes, Prabhuji, we can hear you.
Okay. So today we've been requested to speak about karma, which is it's a big topic. To understand, it's one of the 5 key topics of the Bhagavad Gita. So we have a little presentation. So we've entitled this Prison Break, the Karma Special. Now, hopefully most of you won't know what Prison Break is, but Prison Break is to be honest, it's a TV show from the early 2000s, which I never watched very much. I just saw some episodes, but it's sort of like culturally is well known. And the premise of the TV series is you have these 2 brothers. I can't remember their names. One is Michael, I think. Anyways, they're 2 brothers, and the elder brother is placed into, he's somehow illegally, or he's placed into death row, so given death sentence, he's going to die for a crime that he hasn't committed. And he has sort of a certain amount, maybe 6 weeks or something, until he's going to be killed. This is in America. And the younger brother is like a sort of genius. So what he does is he gets arrested, so that he'll get put into the same prison as his brother. Before he gets arrested, on his body he has the entire blueprint of the prison tattooed onto his body. And then, together as the series develops, then they basically work out how to break out of the prison. This is Maya. Okay, the TV show itself is not particularly important, but it's got a very important point about this idea that if you want to get out of a prison, first you have to acknowledge that you're in a prison, and then you have to know the details of how the whole system is working in order to properly get out. If you just sort of blindly think, well, if I just want to get out, then you may fool yourself for a little while. But one thing Prabhupada would say is, my disciples, they're not sufficiently scared of Maya, that we don't sufficiently understand how tightly binding the material energy is, particularly in the form of karma, and how much it's affecting our lives, how much we're being dictated by it, and therefore how imperative it is for us to get beyond. So, hopefully with your blessings, we can discuss this topic a little bit more. Just before properly beginning, I'd just like to offer prayers to my spiritual master. Om Gyanatamandasya Giranjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. And that whatever we may speak may be chaste and according to Shastra and beneficial ultimately for me. I'm the first listener of this class, but if there's something that's helpful for you, then that's my great privilege. So first of all, I'd just like to open up with a question. This is the sort of question that anytime someone's giving some introduction to Krishna consciousness, will often ask. Now, I know it's all experienced Vaishnavas here, and so everybody knows we're not the body. We've heard it a million times, and in this class, I'm not going to be just telling you that you're not the body. But nonetheless, we can be sometimes somewhat simplistic in this thinking that I'm not the body, I'm a spirit soul. So, so this is you, for a sense. So we're asking what makes you you. So we see, for instance, the famous picture we get in the Bhagavad Gita and changing bodies. The soul is eternal. The soul is full of knowledge. The soul is full of bliss. And that is you. And the soul has a temporary body. So we've all heard this before. We all understand it. But nonetheless, when we actually look more in detail at that picture, we understand that this is a somewhat simplistic representation. You know, just a gross physical body and a soul. Okay, that's very sort of simplistic reductionist understanding of reality. And so the next stage up, which is slightly more in depth, this diagram's not actually accurate, but it looked nice on Google. We understand that there's the subtle body, so we have the soul, which is spiritual. Then we have the subtle body, mind, intelligence, false ego, which is something you cannot see, but you can perceive, just like smell or wind, or in many of these things, you cannot see them, but they're there. And then we have the gross body, which we can see and which interacts with matter. So this is a slightly more detailed understanding of who you are, but still it's not complete. There's much more than that still there. So I wonder if perhaps if I can just open it up for the whole Zoom group, if anyone could just throw out some short 1-2 word answers. What makes you you? So right now, the things that we've talked about, we have the soul, we have the subtle body, and we have the gross body. So these three things. But just think about in your own life, what is also contributing to your sense of identity? So perhaps if anyone would be willing to suggest or share some answers, just to sort of get the thoughts churning.
So Prabhuji, what's the question again, please? What makes you
What
you,
makes
is
you
it?
you?
Okay.
Yeah, so
Would anyone like to attempt the answer?
Yeah, I mentioned your nature.
Your nature, yeah. What do you mean by nature?
It's what you're naturally inclined to from, I guess, from when you're very young.
So what you're attracted to?
Yeah.
So desires as well?
Yeah.
Okay, very nice. No, very important point. Thank you for sharing.
Your
Anyone else could
association,
share?
your people you associate with.
Very much so. Yes, who you're spending time with. You know, you spend time with criminals, most likely you might also take up organized crime. You spend time with very hard-working business professionals, also you may be like that. So association is very important. Also, when you think about what you're doing in the world, say for instance you have a family, a lot of your identification comes with in that family situation. So right now, perhaps, you know, I'm acting as a mother. So that's a large part of who I am right now. So we have the philosophical knowledge. Yeah, I'm a pure spirit soul who's not got anything to do with matter. But nonetheless, I'm here right now. And I'm acting as a mother or a father or as a child or as a grandfather, these different roles. So these are contributing to, in Sanskrit, what's known as swabhava, you know, that whole sense of being. I wonder, we'll maybe take one more suggestion. What anyone could suggest as another aspect of conception of self.
Maybe is it what we are constantly thinking about, or consciousness?
Thoughts?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, very much so. Thank you, Sharon. Yeah, constantly so many different thoughts come through. One important part I was also thinking of is, you know, what's happening to us right now, what we're doing. And what we're doing is also what material situation we have as well. So it's all what we're going to actually discover as we go through this session is to understand how all these different aspects of us, which are beyond just the soul. The soul is pure, but then the mind, the body, the false ego, your personality, your family, your material situation, your thoughts, your nature, as everyone suggested, all these other things, these are actually, these are all due to karma, all of them. And these are all different encasings upon the spirit soul. So just as we're in that prison, and we need to understand how the prison is working in order to escape, so similarly, we have to understand how all these different aspects of who we are affecting us. And you cannot artificially deny them. It's like being in a prison and saying, well, I'm just not going to be in a prison. It's like, no, that's just not going to work. Same in spiritual life, you can just think, well, I'm just a soul. And it's okay, you can think that. But nonetheless, you know, tomorrow you may get hit by a car. That might be your karma. You think, well, I'm just a soul, I'm not going to get hit by a car. No, until you get to a very, very elevated platform where you're actually described in the Gita, Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate, that when you're on that level of fully realizing your spirit soul, then you can get free from these things. But until we're at that level, we have to understand them. Yes. So this is the definition given in the Gita regarding what is karma. It's interesting because we always talk about karma, but the Bhagavad Gita gives a very, very clear definition, which personally I've never actually heard any devotee quote, apart from one time I read it. But the Krishna says this, Arjuna, because in the chapter 7, Krishna talks about more sort of esoteric aspects of the philosophy, and then many, many nice things. And then Arjuna at the start of chapter 8, he has a whole series of questions because Krishna's opened up so many other things. He's very interested. One of the questions he asks is, what is karma? So Krishna gives this very clear answer. He says, action pertaining to the development of material bodies of the living entities is called karma, or fruit of activities. So the material body, we understand, is much more than just, my fingers and flesh. This is one aspect of karma. But then everything else we've talked about, your personality, your nature, your likes, your dislikes, your family, your association, your material situation, your wealth, your illness, all these things are different aspects of karma. So we can see actually the physical body, the mental body, these things are actually manifestations of your karma. So for instance, we can look at this. On the left here, we'll see it's a diagram of how to read someone's palm. Personally, I cannot read someone's palm, but I know devotees who can. And what's interesting with reading a palm is that by looking at one aspect of someone's manifest karma, you can actually understand the entirety of their karma at this present moment. So that's what someone's doing when they're reading their palm. The same with the astrology. So, okay, you're born at a particular time in this particular house. And again, I'm not so good at astrology, but basically, those who are expert, they can actually fully understand the extent of your karma, just as if a cook will test one grain of rice and know if the whole pot is cooked. It's the same, just by understanding one aspect of someone's karma, you can actually understand what's going to happen to them throughout their life. So like previously here, you'll see at the bottom, we have a picture of a cylinder and it's got a cross section. So cylinder's moving, you take a cross section. So like right now in your life, when you're born at a particular place, born at a particular time, all these things is like a cross section of your karma. So it's a different way of thinking about who am I. You understand, okay, I'm not this body, I'm the soul. But the soul is situated in situated in karma, these different activities and all the different reactions and resultant reactions from that. So we're going to analyze a little bit how these resultant actions and reactions actually impact the soul. So this is an analogy I got from His Grace Kartik Chandra Prabhu. It's a very, very nice analogy. I take no credit for it, but I just hope I can explain it correctly. So this is basically an analogy of how we understand karma means action. The Gita described it as action pertaining to the development of material bodies. But its literal sense, karma means action, anything you're doing. And that can be, in this analogy, is similar to a man shooting an arrow. Okay? The point is just about to shoot, he's about to do something. And so as he shoots the arrow, imagine he's got a series of arrows and he's shooting them like this as we're doing different things. So we wake up, and then we drink some coffee, and then we go drive to work, and then we fire someone. All the different things we're doing in the day. But each is like firing an arrow. So imagine there's one arrow here, just about to be shot. Let me get our I have a laser pointer. Yeah. Can you see my cursor? No, that's the wrong one. There we go. Okay. So there's one, these are the actions he's doing. Then this arrow that's in the air, this is the actions he's done. And then the arrow hits the target. So this is in the process of doing something. This is having done something, but not received a reaction for it yet. So you know, say for instance, you slap someone. By the laws of karma, you're going to get slapped yourself. But that slap may not come straight away. It could happen in 10 days' time, it could happen in 10 years' time, it could happen in 10 lifetimes' time. So that's karma, which is not manifest yet. And then here, what is hit the target, this is manifest karma. So yeah, I've got them written down. Okay. So this is us performing some activity. In this example, it's something bad. So say we're slapping someone, is about to do it. Then number 2 is that we've performed that activity, but we've not received the result of it yet. And number 3 is karma that we have received right now. So the fact that we're born in a particular societal position, we're born in a very wealthy family, we're well-to-do. That's a sign of having done some sort of pious activities previously, or you're born in certain ways, you know, you've got lots of illness or something's not going so well. These are manifest karma. So that due to previous activities, that particular karma is there right now. But importantly, there's actually another aspect to this diagram. So you see here, the archer has a quiver and he's got some arrows still to shoot. Oh. This is actually the most important part of the diagram, because this here, these arrows still to shoot, this is the stock of sinful desires which are already in the heart. So when you perform some sinful activity, not only do you get a result, so say for instance you eat meat, or, you know, you kill an animal to satisfy the tongue. So you do that, you take the meat, then the resultant reaction, according to, you know, Manu Samhita, then you have to then take birth as that animal experience. So that'd be some manifest karma. But another thing happens when you perform that sinful activity. You then acquire the propensity to want to do that activity more. So karma works in such a way that the more sinful activity you perform, the more you're inclined to perform sinful activity, which is a very, very important point. Sorry, I should have plug in the laptop. And so this propensity to want to perform sinful activity, this is what keeps us more and more entangled in the material world. Okay. So I have this is a more professional looking diagram of the same thing we showed in the previous slide, but just a sort of a different diagram. This is taken from Damodar Swami's book on the Waves of Devotion. It's a commentary on the Nectar of Devotion. So all these ideas are actually described in the Nectar of Devotion by Srila Rupa Goswami, translated by Srila Prabhupada. So the technical terms for what we discussed. So papam, referring to some sinful activity. Aprarabdha is unmanifest reaction. And the aprarabdha leads to so one way when you perform something sinful, unmanifest, and then it leads to manifest reaction, and then the karma phala, so the fruits of karma. The other thing that happens, so then you develop more of a kutam, which is a stock, a sinful propensity in the heart, the desire to do something sinful. And of course, we learn from Bhagavad Gita, Jayato, which that by contemplating the objects of the senses, what's that verse? Sangat sanjayate kama krodha vijayate. You know, by contemplation, then desire arises, and from desire, attachment, etc. So when we have that sinful propensity, it's going to lead us to want to perform that sinful activity again. And therefore we get caught in this cycle. And as we get caught, then actually, I mean, it's a different topic I don't really want to get into now, but this is the relationship between karma and free will. The more we get caught in this cycle, then the less free will we have to actually execute things. So you take someone who's born in, like, say you're born in a family where everyone's engaged in organized crime. It's going to be more likely that you're going to also become engaged in organized crime. And then you're going to get put in a situation where you're going to have to keep doing that and doing that and doing that. So even like social scientists or people who are looking at like why some people succeed in life and why other people don't succeed, they're very much aware of this, how your particular situation has so much impact upon the way you actually act. So much so that, you know, there's even been examples of people who've committed crime, who've committed murder, and their lawyer managed to get them away from being properly punished, just by saying that they're a victim of circumstance. Because over time, you become less and less able to execute what's called agency. It means free will. And so right now we're in the human form of life, and the human form of life is characterized by the fact that we have this consciousness, this free will, and this agency. And as we lower our consciousness, so the, you know, animal species, etc., they're manifestations of lower aspects of consciousness. The soul is still pure, but less manifest. Then, you know, an animal is much, much less free will than a human being. But this is the way the cycle works, because then the less free will you have, then the less karmic reaction you also have to take. So an animal doesn't actually get a karmic reaction; it's burning up that karma. But this is why human life is very, very important, because in human life, then we have the opportunity to get free from this. So I have here, this is one verse. It's from the Padma Purana. Prabhupada quotes this verse many times. It's quoted in the Bhagavad Gita. Personally, I have one little project, which I'm not quite started yet, but the verses Prabhupada quotes from the Bhagavad Gita are just incredible. So the verses themselves in the Gita are incredible. The quotes Prabhupada has, all these verses are so, so important. So this is from the 9th chapter of the Gita, chapter 2, verse 2. Raja Vidya Raja Guyam Pavitramitamutamam Pratyaksavagamam Dharmam Susukam Kartamavyayam. And Prabhupada gives a very long purport to this verse, and he quotes this verse from the Padma Purana. This verse is also quoted, as I mentioned before, in the Nectar Devotion. So what the diagram I showed on the previous slide is taken from this verse. And so here's one of the translations. I'll just read the translation. There are different stages of dormant reactions to sinful activities to be observed in a sinful life. Sinful reactions may be just waiting to take effect, pada mukha. Reactions may still be further dormant, kuta, or the reactions may be in a seed-like state, bija. In any case, all types of sinful reactions are papam, sinful action, aparabdha, unmanifest reaction, prabdha, manifest reaction, phala, fruits, bijam, sinful desire, kutam, stalk. Sorry, I've read this wrong. In any case, all these different reactions, this is the important part, are vanquished one after another if a person engages in the devotional service of Lord Vishnu. So we see we've got all these different aspects of karma, or whatever word you want to use. So just to go back to the previous diagram, we've got what we're doing, then we have the unmanifest reaction, then we have the sinful stock in the heart, we have sinful desire, and we also have manifest reaction. So these different stages. Now, what people do when they engage in what's known as prayaschitta, or atonement, is, so say for instance, I do something wrong, then I perform some pious activity to undo that. So if, you know, even it's described that if any householder, they have to perform 5 sacrifices. This is, of course, not recommended nowadays, but previously to overcome, you know, just all the sinful activity which happens as a result of living. You know that you kill insects when you're drinking water, and you're lighting fires, and that's killing so many insects and living beings. We can't avoid causing some harm in the world. And therefore people do some sacrifice or give some charity or do something to undo that bad thing. So that's trying to undo the aparabdha karma. But what that cannot do is it cannot destroy the sinful desire in the heart. Therefore, again, we commit sinful activity. So those of you who are familiar with the sixth canto, this is the premise of the beginning of the sixth canto. You know, everyone knows Parikshit Maharaj, after hearing the details of the hellish planet, says, well, how can people avoid this? And Shukadeva Goswami, he's testing him. And he said, well, so we can just perform pious activity and therefore you'll get free from it. And then, of course, the famous example is there of the elephant bathing. So the elephant bathes, it gets free from the dirt, and then again rolls in the dirt. So that's what we've tried to do by performing some prayaschitta to get rid of aparabdha karma. But this verse here is teaching us that by engaging in devotional service to Lord Vishnu, then we can destroy a karma at every single stage. So we can destroy the karma which is not yet manifest. We can destroy the desire to perform sinful activity. We can perform the sinful desire itself. But even importantly, we can destroy the parabdha karma. So that's karma which is already manifest. And so this point is very, very important. This is why in the Nectar of Devotion, and I think it's chapter 5, I can't remember exactly where it is, near the beginning, there's a whole chapter basically about how Prabhupada is quoting many times from Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj how he destroyed this idea of caste Brahmanism. Because the idea of caste Brahmanism is that you have to be born into a particular. So the reason you get born into a Brahmin family is because of your previous activities. And if you're born into a pure, Suchinam Srimatage, you're born into a pure environment. And therefore you can engage in temple worship and yagyas, etc. But we understand from this verse that even a parabdha, so if we're born into a sinful, so we learn from the Gita, mami parto vipasritya tepi su papayonaya, get born into a sinful environment. So it's seen that if you're born in a place which is, where you sickness or you're no access to education or very, very struggling for financially, so these are signs of, different aspects of karma. But we're learning from this verse that all that is completely eradicated by, here it says Vishnu Bhakti. So we have the examples given, by clapping the hands in kirtan, then the lines on the hands, as we said earlier, the lines in your hands, these are like a way to understand the whole aspect of your karma. They change when you clap. Yeah, so here's describing how we can overcome this caste Brahmanism. And then, so we have to question, okay, so we're going to engage in Vishnu Bhakti. Of course, you get many other seminars on what that actually means to engage in Vishnu Bhakti. Primarily, Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu Smaranam, Archanam Vandanam Dasyam. And then this verse is very, very key to understanding what to actually do whilst that karma is becoming destroyed. So on the right here, there's a picture. Prabhupada loved this analogy. Such a nice analogy. Prabhupada was so expert at analogies. His ability to just take something and use it to apply in such a perfect way for someone else to understand. It's just beautiful. But it's this analogy of the fan. The fan is whirring, the plug is pulled. So when the plug is pulled, that symbolizes engaging in Vishnu Bhakti. But naturally, the fan still whirs for a while. So similarly, Lord Brahma is making this prayer in the 10th canto. My dear Lord, one who earnestly waits for you to bestow your causeless mercy upon him, all the while patiently suffering the reactions of his past misdeeds, and offering you respectful obeisances with his heart, words, and body, is surely eligible for liberation, for it has become his rightful claim. This is such an important verse in the Bhagavatam. Prabhupada quotes it so many times. Tatena kampam sushamikshimano. But it's teaching us how to actually deal with this situation. Because it's not that simply you engage in Krishna Bhakti and then you awaken to that understanding you're the soul. Now, as we said earlier, the soul is encased in all these different things, which are aspects of our Prarabdha karma. And also, we cannot see the karma yet to come, the unmanifest karma. And then all the desires, the kutam. So all this covering is on the soul. And just by engaging in Vishnu Bhakti, which Vishnu, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, this is the basic principles of Bhakti. Just by chanting Hare Krishna, just by being around devotees, taking prasadam, like just the simple things, not that you have to do some crazy far out things, the simple things Prabhupada told us to do, all this karma is actually being destroyed. But of course, it doesn't happen overnight. But the interesting thing is, so karma acts for every single living entity. And, we learn from the Gita, Manusyanam Sahasreshu Kashi Jatati Siddhaye. People who are engaged in spiritual life, they're very rare. And rarer than that, of course, is devotees. And rarer than that, what devotee actually knows Krishna in full is very, very rare. So 99% of living entities aren't engaged in Vishnu Bhakti, or at least not directly engaged in Vishnu Bhakti. So karma is acting, Krishna set that system in place. There's a whole system which is set up there. And Krishna's not so involved with it. It's like he's put it on autopilot. And there's a whole reason behind the reason why karma is there. We may touch on later. But for a devotee, then Krishna he's actually, when Krishna sees, okay, this person is interested in progressing towards me, Krishna gets very excited and he starts making the arrangements very favorable. So one way he does this is he sees that, okay, this particular living entity, they are encased in a network of karma. And the karma is there to purify them of their desires, is to awaken this purity in the heart. And it's quite a long process. We have to go over the same thing again and again. But Krishna says, okay, this person wants to come to me, but he still has these things to overcome. Okay, he's got this particular anartha, particular attachment, which is really holding me back from him. So what I'll do, Krishna's thinking like this, I'll use his unmanifest karma in such a way as to directly speed up his ability to surrender to me. So you see it. Sometimes, you might be living a completely healthy life, you become a devotee, you get serious, and then you get sick. Or you become a devotee, and the opposite happens, you become super rich. It's interesting with Sudama Brahmana, this past time, it's described that his last tinge of an anartha, he's a pure devotee, but he's got this last tinge of an anartha, is that Sudama Brahmana is somehow attached to being a simple, humble Brahmana with, not many material possessions. Therefore, what does Krishna do? He gives them such an incredible, opulent palace. And this sort of destroys that last anartha, and then Sudama just becomes a completely soul surrendered to Krishna. Although he's already a pure devotee, but still that last tinge of an anartha is there. But Krishna wants us to come back to him. It's like a father, he's having to tell off his child, but he wants his child just to have a loving relationship with him. So he sees anything the child is doing good, he encourages that. The same in this verse, what we hear Lord Brahma is describing is that, you'll get, patiently suffering the reactions of your past misdeeds. So anything that happens to us, a devotee should have that humble mentality that this is due to my past misdeeds. I am the cause of why I'm suffering right now. So that is the essential baseline from which to view the world. But when you have that view, like, you don't become a victim, what you do, all the while offering respectful obeisances with heart, words, and body. So that means, Tivrena Bhakti Yogana, intensely engaged in devotional service. Any supposed setback we think we're facing is actually the mercy of God to allow us to intensify our devotional service. Krishna is giving us that opportunity every single step of the way. And according to how sincere we are, then Krishna will give us what we need even quicker. But if we're scared, then Krishna will say, okay, if I give this person too much, then if they don't have that philosophical conviction, not philosophical in the sense of being some learned scholar, but that conviction which knows, actually, I want nothing to do with this material world. Yes, I have desires. Yes, I've got so many things wrong with me. Yes, I'm covered by lust and greed. But I don't want anything to do with this. Krishna, I want you. When we're on that platform, in honesty and sincerity, then Krishna will see, okay, I can send this person what they need to fast track their process back to me. The fast track. You know, back to Siddhanta Maharaj said, this material world is like a toilet. You do your business and then you get out. A gentleman does not hang around. And so we should also have that mentality. And so there's one prayer by Srila Bhakti Tirtha Swami, one very incredible Vaishnava disciple of Srila Prabhupada. It's a scary prayer. Maybe some of you have heard it before. I would recommend this prayer should come with a warning. Almost like, do not try it at home, but you should. But it's a very, very scary prayer. But he said every day, he's saying you should come before Srila Prabhupada. You know, perhaps you have some murti at home or at the temple is a murti of Prabhupada. In the temple here, we offer, of course, Guru Puja, we offer flowers to Prabhupada every day. He said you should make the prayer. Srila Prabhupada, whatever I personally need to go through, in order for me to be of more service to you and your mission, speed those things up. See, that's the mood of a surrendered soul. Personally, I struggle to make that prayer. I'm too scared. But that's the prayer of someone who's completely surrendered. And that's the prayer of someone who's not on the way back to Godhead. But they're not interested in going back to Godhead, they simply want to serve. And therefore all of our activities then become free from karma. So perhaps we do have a little more to talk about, but that sort of finishes that section. So perhaps there's any questions or comments so far, and then I'm not quite sure of the timing wise, but there's some more we can discuss if need be. But perhaps there's any comments or questions so far.
It's all very clear, Prabhuji. You've explained everything so nicely.
It's very kind. Maybe they say no questions means you understand everything or nothing. So
you've been very good at explaining, Prabhu. Very, very, very powerful. Thank you.
Okay, that's good. So Mataji, can I just check what time should I go on to? Because I've got some more we can discuss. I just want to know roughly.
You can carry on discussing, Prabhuji, until
Okay.
about 5-ish, and then we'll open up the class for comments.
Okay. Yeah, so we discussed, I touched on this earlier. So this idea of free will and karma always comes up. You know, we understand about karma. Okay, so understand that what's happening to us is already, like the arrow, which is already in midair, is going to already happen. You're going to get rich, you're going to get sick, or your partner's going to leave you. These things are already destined. So therefore, what freedom do we actually have? And of course, we can always say, well, you've got the freedom to react how you want. You know, if you get sick, do you see it as an opportunity for then increasing your bhajan, or do you see it as sickness as an opportunity just for, okay, now I don't need to go to the temple, now I don't need to do service, you know, it's got an excuse. That freedom is there, but the free will manifests itself depending upon your level of conditioning. So you take, for instance, someone who's very heavily conditioned by the mode of passion and the mode of ignorance. So say, for instance, they're driving along the motorway and they get hit by a car. So that car hitting them is their karma. Due to the activities they performed previously, they're due a certain amount of suffering. They get hit. Then they get out of the car and they start ranting and yelling at the person who hit them. So you can say, well, okay, the car hitting you is your karma. You can't do anything about that. But you've got the free will how you react, and that's true. You do have the free will how you react to that. But if you're heavily conditioned by the modes of passion or ignorance, then your ability to have agency over that free will, the ability to react in a peaceful, calm way, maybe to see, okay, maybe I shouldn't have pulled out in front of you in that way, or, you know, seeing the situation in a clear way, that is inhibited when we're covered by the modes. So as we progress, so we see on the right here, we have this London Eye, Ferris wheel. This is again, I probably would also like this analogy, that this 8.4 million species of life is like a Ferris wheel. And they represent 8.4 million different levels of consciousness. And as we progress, then as we elevate more to the mode of goodness, then more free will is there. Because mode of goodness means clarity, means being able to see reality as it is. When we're more covered by the mode of ignorance, mode of passion, then our ability to actually choose how to act in the world is basically determined for us. Something bad happens, if we react badly, therefore we get more sinful reaction, therefore react even more badly. And it's like a cycle. It brings us deeper and deeper and darker until we reach the animal species, etc. And then we start burning up that karma until we get to the human form of life again. And so one important takeaway, which we always have to remind ourselves, should just be the value and the rarity and the incredible opportunity we have in this particular lifetime. So right now, okay, somehow or other, I have a human form of life. Somehow or other, I have, let's be honest here, we're all logged in on computers, we've got access to the internet. We've got food to eat, water to drink, clean air to breathe. Yeah, we can complain about there's many things wrong with the world, but we actually have an incredible opportunity to engage in devotional service. And so we actually have to understand how rare and incredible this opportunity is and how quickly it can be taken away from us if we misuse it. And if we don't properly value it, and if we don't properly understand what it is that I can do with this human form of life, then, it's the greatest waste. The Ishopanishad describes you the killer of the soul. It's very heavy. You're the killer of the soul if you don't use this opportunity for self-realization. I think one Buddhist analogy is the turtle is underwater. They say once every 100 years, the turtle comes up to breathe. And once in all these 100 years, when it comes up to breathe, it places its head up into the water, and there's a little ring on the water, and his head goes right through that ring. Just imagine the rarity of that situation. Once every 100 years, he comes up for a breath. And out of all these 100 years, one time, just as he's coming up for a breath, there's a ring on the water, and his head fits right through it. You see, that's the rarity of the human form of life. Now, this is an analogy. It's not shastrically. I've not heard it. But it serves to illustrate the immense opportunity we have here. And therefore, we have the opportunity in this Ferris wheel. We're going up and down and up and down and up and down since time immemorial. But right now, although we're on this Ferris wheel, we have the opportunity to completely transcend beyond it, to go down a completely different plane, to completely destroy that sinful propensity which is keeping us locked up in this material world for so long. And it's so simple. Just chant Hare Krishna. It's the essence. Everything comes from the chanting. And then lastly, to be honest, I should have done this in a different order, but it's a bit late now. I just wanted to give a couple of examples of why this whole system of karma is here in the first place. Why make people suffer, especially for things they can't remember doing. So just give me 2 seconds. I need to turn the light on. So it's a good question, okay? So you perform some sinful activity, then you leave your body, say after 80 years, and then the next life you have to then suffer for that. You can't remember what you did. So it seems like, well, okay, we understand karma is there to teach you a lesson. If you can't see the cause and effect, then how are you going to actually take on that lesson? It's like, imagine, like you've got a child and the child, I don't know, the child doesn't want to do their homework one day. And then like 3 months later, you take away their phone and don't tell them why. It's like the child is not going to learn the lesson. They have to do their homework. They're just going to get angry at you. So it seems like that with karma as well. Some people, they're just like, they're doing so many nice things. They're looking after their family, they're working nicely, they're helping the environment. Then they just get hit by like cancer or something bad. And they can't make sense of it. And as a result, they blame God. It's very common. Even there's one famous book written by one Jewish theologian after the Holocaust. You know, he's saying, how can God have allowed this Holocaust to take place? And his conclusion is that God is basically impotent, and God can't do anything. It's a very dissatisfying conclusion. It's just like you just feel like the outpouring of his heart. It's just, you feel so overwhelmed by that. I can't make sense of the situation. I think it's a good question to ponder. But the material world works in such a way. Om Purnamidam Purnamidam Purnamidachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. This material world and all its laws and karmic reactions is all an emanation from Krishna. It's actually perfect. And it's designed in such a way as to make us become responsible. It's like a school, like a prison. A prison's got two aspects of a prison. There's punishment, or three aspects of a prison actually. Basically, if you have someone who's not fit to be in society, he's a danger to society, so he has to get taken out of society. You know, someone who's prone to just assault people or is prone to harass people, he's not fit to be in the association of normal civilized beings, so you have to take him out of society. So same, you could say the spiritual world is like that. The spiritual world is normality, and here we've been taken out of the spiritual world because we can't. When we have a desire to enjoy separately from Krishna, then we can't function. We're going to just spoil the party in the spiritual world. Okay, so that's one of the reasons for the material world. But also a prison shouldn't just be to keep people away from society. A good prison is there as a reformation center to somehow reform the behavioral and psychological patterns of that person so that they can then be reintegrated back into society. So this material world has that same principles about it. So you see here, the people aren't important. The picture came up on Google when I looked up people shaking hands. But there's a famous experiment done about short-term memory loss. So there was one patient who had some accident or some operation whereby part of their brain, which deals with making new short-term memories, that part was somehow had some hemorrhage or it was damaged, so they couldn't make new short-term memories. Quite a common, it happens many times. So basically you'll meet someone and say, hello, my name is Panchatattva, nice to meet you. And then the next day you'll say, hello, my name is, you have to introduce yourself again because they've not had that ability to learn something new. They'll still know the previous things about themselves. They'll know things before a certain point, but maybe when they were 2 years ago, they had some accident, then they're no longer able to make new memories. So a documented medical condition. But there's one doctor who's doing research, a psychologist, and he noticed, so every day he would go to this patient and say, hello, my name is Dr. So-and-so. Then he'd introduce himself. And every time it'd be like you're meeting for the first time. But what he started doing was he started putting in his hand a pin. So we go to shake this patient's hand who had the memory loss. He'd shake their hand and they would go, oh, because he got picked by a pin. And he did that once, he did it twice. And on the third time, although that person didn't remember them, what did they do? They didn't shake hands. Because subtly, although they couldn't consciously remember it, subtly the impression was there. So this is a really nice analogy for how karma is working. That although we may not be consciously clear of, I'm getting this as a result of this. Okay, you know, was it Duryodhan 100 lifetimes ago had been a hunter and killed, you know, shot a nest and 100 eggs and crashed, and that's why all his 100 sons died. Something complex like this that we can't understand. But the lesson will always be there. And therefore, the quicker we can understand how yeah, the mentality of a successful spiritual is everything is due to me. Tatena Kampamsu Smikshimano is a result of my past misdeeds, and it's an opportunity to become reformed and fully aligned to the desire of Krishna. Therefore, you know, it's like a prison. The quicker you can learn in a prison why it is that you're here and how to actually reform that behavior, then quicker we can go back to the real world. So that finishes my presentation. So yeah, kindly if devotees have any comments, anything they want to share, or any questions, then please be nice to hear from you.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful talk. Very interesting, all the points that you've made. And yeah, we'll open up the class now for any questions or comments. Prabhuji, can I ask you, please? You mentioned a little while ago that sometimes we knowingly or unknowingly kill an insect, for example. We walk over them. And then we realize that, oh, it shouldn't have happened. So we've accumulated some form of karma in our action of killing that particular insect, for example. So what do we have to do, Prabhuji? Would we have to perhaps say a prayer or carry on with our devotional service to try and eradicate the karma that we have just accumulated? How should we deal with that situation, Prabhuji?
Yeah, I've thought about this quite a lot because we're not even aware of how much pain we're causing in the world. And so one thing, of course, if you see, you see you're killing some insect, best thing to do is chant the holy names. Let that insect hear the holy names. Therefore, they'll achieve, something much higher. But the ultimate essence, I mean, think about this, the only thing we can really do is our life has to be completely devoted to service to others. So we can actually embrace the mood of Mahaprabhu, which is, Yara Deki Tarakaha Krishna Pradesh. Everywhere you go, teaching people about Krishna, awakening their Krishna consciousness. If you can become someone who's completely surrendered and completely giving everything, not just, okay, I'm going to look after my spiritual life. I'm going to chant my rounds. I'm going to follow these principles, and then I'm going to go back to Godhead. Like that's good, but actually the higher principle, if I can just become an instrument of Mahaprabhu's mercy, if I can just give and give, and this is actually the mood of the spiritual world. You want to get esoteric, it's the mood of the gopis. She's giving, bringing everyone to Krishna. If you can embrace that, then it's described. I forget the verse. Tirtha kurvanti tirthani. Actually, if you can become such a saintly person as that, then everywhere you go becomes a place of pilgrimage. So someone like Prabhupada stands on an insect. That insect is probably going to go back to Godhead. Who knows? Of course, it's not just limited to Prabhupada. We can glorify Prabhupada, but we should glorify Prabhupada by understanding that those who follow Prabhupada can also become glorious like Prabhupada. Not to take his place, but he's showing us the way. Not just to put him on a pedestal and think, okay, that's Prabhupada and we're just down here. Yeah, it's Prabhupada, but we also have to try and kick to that standard. Of course, he's empowered and sent by Krishna, but you understand what I mean? And you see that with many of Prabhupada's disciples, and still the generations after. People are completely, they've done 180 flip. Material world is all about me, and they're just all about selfless giving. Then they become places of pilgrimage, and they make everything auspicious. So not just, I'm trying to minimize the karma I'm doing, I'm actually awakening people's God consciousness just by being in that place. It's a sidetrack, but I remember Prabhupada came to Scotland for one day. One night, 2 days, yeah, and he was in one hall, and there was one cleaner who was cleaning that hall where he did a talk, and then it was in Maryhill, actually, I mean, and then yeah, Prabhupada went and used that bathroom. And later, his cleaner was. He was. I don't think he was even at the top. He cleaned the bathroom and he became a devotee. It's like you can't understand how much auspiciousness is being permeated by such a personality. So, in ultimate essence, become a saint. That's what you're going to do.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji. Thank you. So we have two questions. I'll come to we'll come to Hema Mataji. Hema Mataji, you've raised your hand.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. Lovely class, Prabhu. I was going to ask you, what's the purpose of desire in your activity?
The purpose of desire, as in, like, does Krishna see the desire behind an action when determining how much karma to get? Is that the question?
Yeah, I mean, it's more about the reason why we have desire, I guess.
Well, Krishna has desire. We are part of Krishna. Mame Vamso Jiva. We're part and parcel of Krishna. Everything that exists, even in the material world, has its original source in the spiritual world. Here with the banyan tree upside down. So Krishna has desire. Although he's Atmarama. This is, of course, the paradox, and you hear the prayers of many prayers in the Bhagavatam. Krishna is completely self-satisfied, but nonetheless, he wants to serve his devotees.
Okay.
Sri Krishna Karshani. Krishna is actually attracted by complete pure devotional service. Krishna comes as Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to experience. He's got desire. He wants to experience what Srimati Radharani is experiencing. So desire is there. But the problem in the material world is that the desire is for us to somehow try and experience happiness and enjoyment here in an incompatible situation. And therefore Krishna arranges karma in such a way that those desires will inevitably bring us suffering. Until we can actually subtly learn that, okay, all I actually want is simply to somehow serve those who are serving those who are serving those who are serving Krishna. And nothing for me, everything for Krishna. And when you have that desire, you don't become desireless. You simply desire only Krishna's pleasure. So desire is
Thank you. Thank you, Prabhuji. That's beautifully explained.
Thank you.
Thank you, Hema Mataji, and thank you, Prabhuji, for your answer. Amoga Prabhu has said, Hare Krishna Prabhuji, very nice class. Thank you very much. Amazing session. Jay Prabhu has said, if someone hits you, causes physical harm, or if someone steals from you, should we just sit back and accept it as a result of karma and not react at all?
It's a good question. We can learn a lot from Bhagavatam. In the first canto of Bhagavatam, there's a pastime when Parikshit Maharaj, as the emperor of the world, is touring his kingdom. And of course, I'm sure many of you have heard the story. He comes across Dharma personified in the form of a bull. And of course, the bull has had his legs chopped off by Kali. It's a very famous pastime. There's a very interesting conversation which takes place between the bull of Dharma and Parikshit Maharaj. So Parikshit, as a king, as a ruler, what does he do? He sees himself as personally responsible for the demise of Dharma. So Parikshit Maharaj, as a saintly king, he takes that responsibility for himself. And he thinks, well, how can I... Ultimately, it's my fault, he's thinking, but then I need to try and stop whoever's killing Dharma. So he's asking the bull of Dharma, so who did this to you? But Dharma personified, he's also incredibly wise and saintly. And he says, well, it depends what level you mean. Because ultimately, I'm just an instrument of my own karma. I'm the one who's doing this to me. I'm a result of my own karma. If you take it a step higher, actually everything's been ordained by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Dharma knows that Kali was cutting his legs. But Dharma himself, he sees it as his own. and he sees how actually God has ordained this. But Parikshit Maharaj doesn't see it as Dharma's fault. Parikshit Maharaj sees it as his own fault, and he sees how can he retribute the situation. So according to a spiritual person should always see themselves as a cause of their own suffering. So that's a spiritual perspective to take. But then not that you then become passive to that. So for instance, you gave the example of, let me just check again, you know, someone hitting you, causing physical harm. And so just sitting back, no, the Gita says, you know, when you just, it depends what level you're on, actually, importantly. You know, there's pastime of, I think Gorkashore Das Babaji or Jagannath Das Babaji, you know, and school children are throwing rocks at them, and they're not reacting. They see that as a result of their own karma. And when you're on that level, then yeah, you don't need to react, because actually what, you know, someone throws a rock at you, someone steals from you, someone causes you physical harm. Actually, they're not doing you any harm. If you're on the level where you can see that this is simply an instrument of my karma, then you can actually exist like that. But the problem is if you artificially act like that without being on the level, then it's actually toxic. Actually, it's a form, you could even say it's a form of self-harm. So it's interesting, you have to take that. So until you're at that platform, that's a very elevated platform, then you ultimately you have to put Krishna at the center. To think, well, you know, this person is causing me physical harm, then I'm not going to be able to engage in service. And self-defense is bona fide. You're allowed to, Prabhupada says you can even slap and kill a mosquito if it's biting you. Only if it's biting you. If it's not biting you, you can't kill it. If it's biting you, you can kill it. So, no, we're not to be artificially passive. But at the same time, we should have that internal mood. At least try and cultivate that internal mood. So I was, yeah, maybe I'll get back to you later, Jay, with a clearer answer. I hope that helps to some degree.
Thank you very much. So Deepak Prabhu has said, Hare Krishna Prabhu, very nice class. Atul Prabhu has said, Hare Krishna Prabhu, what we should do to get pure devotional service of Krishna.
Well, if I knew that, then all I can share is what I've heard. It's not coming from any position of realization. But ultimately, we hear there's a famous verse. I think it's from Javali, but it's quoted in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. What's the verse? Krishna Bhakti Rasa Bhavitamati Kriyatam Yati Kutopila Bite Tatra Loriam Apimoriam Ekaram Janma Koti Sukritya Nalabite. So he's saying Krishna consciousness. It's interesting. Prabhupada uses this phrase, Krishna Bhakti Rasa Bhavita. He translates that as Krishna consciousness. So this Krishna consciousness is the most valuable thing. The most valuable thing. Nothing compares with it. Pure devotional, mood of pure devotional service. Nothing compares to it. It is the most valuable thing. And some things the most valuable, and you should purchase it without delay. I need to clarify who's composed this verse. And maybe Rupa Goswami, but I'm not sure. I don't want to speculate. He said it's the most valuable thing. You should purchase it without delay. So if you're going to purchase it, you need to know what the price is. It says Tatra Lolium Apimolium Ekaram. Lolium means greed, intense hankering. This intense hankering is the price. He says, Janma Koti Sukritya, just performing highest activities, birth after birth, or millions of births, that's not good enough. What you need is greed. And so you have to question, where does greed come from? And greed is infectious. Greed is infectious. You have to associate with those who are greedy for pure devotional service. And pure devotional service is such that not that you achieve it and then you become satisfied. No, it means that the more you taste it, the more you want. And you want and you want and you want. So much so that, well, we heard this from His Holiness Swayambhavan Keshav Maharaj a couple of months ago in one class. So, it's described, Bhakti Vinod Thakur describes, one can see the potency of a Vaishnava by how many other people he makes into Vaishnavas. Because he has that greed, and that greed is infectious to other people. Like this. So who's the greatest Vaishnava? Who's got that most greed? Ultimately, it's Srimati Radharani. How so? Because she has so much greed that she causes Krishna himself to become a devotee. Therefore, Krishna comes as Lord Chaitanya to experience that greed. And Mahaprabhu's got, you look at his life, it's intense, intense greed to be with Krishna. So yeah, all I can ask is that you, maybe Atul, you can pray for me that somehow I can associate with and serve devotees who have this intense greed. Yeah, you shared. And you've asked one more, what is the best way to chant? Okay, yeah, I've been struggling with my chanting recently. The mind's been very disturbed. But chanting has to be, His Grace Mahatma Prabhu, he says, ultimately you have to chant in a prayerful mood. And the essence of prayer is feeling. That the mantra is a medium, a vehicle, which way we can express our feeling. We have to, again, this is greed. We have to intensely want to be with Krishna. Chanting is not about just let me sit and try and control my mind for the next 2 hours. Chanting is not about, okay, you know, I've made some vow, I'm going to do this, or if I get part of I become a Hare Krishna if I chant 16 rounds, or, you know, people will look down on me if I don't do it. No, chanting is ultimately done from a place of intense greed that actually this is the time, and we should see it every day. We should make our japa time the most special part of our day. We realize actually there's nothing more important we do than chanting. We may do service, we may work, we may do so many things, but ultimately the essence of our spiritual life is our connection with the holy name. So therefore, we should completely sanctify our chanting time. So we should chant early in the morning. Earlier the better. My spiritual master always says the best rounds are before Mangalarti. Second best are, you know, before Guru Puja. Third best are, you know, through the rest of the day. And after dark, you're on your own. I see that, you know, if you don't value your rounds, you split them up throughout the day. Or sometimes, you know, there's some difficulties, but our baseline should be that these rounds are just so important. 16 is bare minimum. Prabhupada gave that as a bare minimum. So at very least, we should give 16 rounds and try and, of course, I'm speaking to myself here because I'm very much falling short on this. So I'm not trying to preach anything. I'm just literally trying to inspire myself. But especially when we take initiation, you know, what do we actually vow? Vaisheshika Prabhu says a devotee. It comes from the word vote, and vote refers to one who makes a vow. So the original meaning of devotee is one who makes a vow. And what we vow negatively to not do certain things, really all that we positively vow to do is chant 16 rounds minimum. So we should value these and give them attention, should give them space, you know. We should not touch our phone, these sorts of things. We actually value what it is that you're doing, that I'm actually spending time with Krishna. Tunde Tundavali Rutin Vitanate Tundavali Labdae. I forget the verse. Karna Koda Kadambidi Vitaete. Forgive me, I'm muddling my way through that verse. But again, my Rupa Goswami, that when I chant, I desire to have millions of tongues. Because Krishna is dancing on my tongue. And when Krishna enters into my ears, I want millions of ears. And then when he actually penetrates through the ear into the innermost cavity of my heart, and he starts dancing in my heart, and all my senses, which are pulling me in many different directions, become inept. They're just no more are they pushing and pulling me. So this is actually what chanting should be like. We're with Krishna. So yeah, again, I ask you to humbly, you kindly pray for me that one day we experience this, and together we can take a step forward. So
Thank you. Thank you very much, Prabhuji, for your answer and the question. Nice question. Any other questions or comments or realizations?
Hare Krishna, Mataji, and Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Dhanasana. So just one comment. Everything is explained nicely. And so there is a question about what to be done. And you have explained beautifully about the conversations between Parikshit and Dharma. So there, one statement Parikshit mentions, if we point out the perpetrator who has performed the sinful activity, pointing out to that person, whoever is pointing, he also have got a similar kind of dharma will be applied to him. So dharmam bhavishi dharmajna dharmosha rusharopadrak yad adharmakastanam suchakasyapi tad bhavet. And whoever is identifying the perpetrator or the sinful person, that pointing person is also receives the similar kind of adharmic kind of thing. So he mentions, Parikshit mentions to dharma. So just wanted to add to that point.
thank you very much. It's not what they teach you in materialistic society, but it's so true. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Moga Prabhuji. And in the chat box, Hema Mataji said, when you point at someone, 3 fingers point back to you. That's very true, isn't it? Best not to point at anyone then. Yeah. Any other final comments before we invite the Pavani and Inakshi to sing the bhajan? Okay. Prabhuji, will you stay on? Please stay on for the bhajan, if that's okay.
If it's okay with you, we have it's a Sunday here at the manor, so we have many different guests. So if I could humbly be excused.
Okay, thank you so much. So before we go, let's all unmute our mics and say 3 loud Haribols to Prabhuji. Haribol, Haribol, Haribol.
Haribol.
Very nice.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Vanchakapatarubyascha kripasindhyeva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Anantakoti Vaishnav Vrinda ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.
Jai.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So, okay, we'll have the bhajan now. And I believe that Pavani and Inakshi have joined us. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. I'm going to share the verses on the screen. So, who is going to read the English translation first, please?
Pavani will read the translation.
Okay, let me just have a look and see where's the bhajan. In the meantime, just let us know the name of the bhajan again, please.
E Munadurmati.
It's a beautiful bhajan. So, Inakshi, when you're ready, can you see the lyrics on the screen?
Yes.
Go ahead, please. Thank you.
O Lord, such a wicked mind has brought me into this world, but one of your pure and elevated devotees has come to bring me out of it. He saw me so fallen and wretched, took pity, and came to me, saying, O humbled soul, please listen to this good tiding, for it will gladden your heart. But Sri Krishna Chaitanya has appeared in the land of Navadvip to deliver you. He has safely conducted many miserable souls such as you across the sea of worldly existence. To fulfill the promise of the Vedas, the son of a Brahmana, bearing the name Mahaprabhu of golden complexion, has descended with his brother and the Avaduta Nityananda. Together they have overwhelmed all of Nadia with divine ecstasy. Sri Chaitanya, who is Krishna himself, the son of Nanda, has saved the world by freely distributing his own holy name. Go also and receive your deliverance. O Lord, hearing those words, Bhakti Vinoda has come weeping to the soles of your lotus feet and tells the story of his life.
Okay, you can start with the bhajan now, please.
Yeah. Emona durmati samsara bhitore poriya chinu ami. Emona durmati samsara bhitore poriya chinu ami. Tavani jajana kono mahajana. Tavani jajana kono mahajana. Pathaiya dili tumi. Pathaiya dile tumi. Doya kori more patita dekhiya. Doya kori more patita dekhiya. Koilo amare giya. Koilo amare giya. Oheri na jana shunu bhalo katha. Oheri na jana shunu bhalo katha. Ulasita behiya. Ulasita behiya. Emona durmati samsara bhitore poriya chinu ami. Emona durmati samsara bhitore poriya chinu ami. Tomare tarite Shri Krishna Chaitanya. Tomare tarite Shri Krishna Chaitanya. Navadvipe avatara. Navadvipe avatara. तुम्हारे नो को तो दीना ही न जाने. तुम्हारे नो को तो दीना ही न जाने. कोरिले न भव पारा. कोरिले भव पारा. वेदरे प्रतिज्ञा रखी तारे. वेदरा प्रतिज्ञा रखी तारे. रुक्मवर्णा विप्रसूता. रुक्मवर्णा विप्रसूता. महाप्रभु नामे नरिया माताया. महाप्रभु नामे नरिया माताया. संगे भाई अवधूता. संगे भाई अवधूता. एमुना दुर्मति संसारा भितरे পড়িয়া চিনু আমি। এমনা দুর্মতি সংসারা ভিতরে পড়িয়া চিনু আমি। নন্দসুতা যিনি চৈতন্য গোসাই। নন্দসুতা যিনি চৈতন্য গোসাই। নিজ নামা করি দানা। নিজ নামা করি দানা। তারিল জগত তুমিও জয়া। তারিল জগত তুমিও জয়া। लोहनीज परित्राणा लोहनीज परित्राणा এমনা দুর্মাতি সংসার ভিতরে পড়িয়া চিনু আমি এমনা দুর্মাতি সংসার ভিতরে পড়িয়া চিনু আমি সে কথা শুনিয়া আসিয়াছি নাথ সে কথা শুনিয়া আসিয়াছি নাথ তোমার চরণ তালে তোমার চরণ তালে ভক্তি বিনোদ কান্ডিয়া কান্ডিয়া ভক্তি বিনোদ কান্ডিয়া কান্ডিয়া अपन काहिनी बोले अपन काहिनी बोले এমন দুর্মতি সংসার ভিতরে পড়িয়া চিনু আমি হরে কৃষ্ণ
Hare Krishna, beautiful bhajan, Pavani and Enakshi. Really nice. Thank you so much. I'm sure everyone enjoyed.
Thank you,
Very
Mataji.
nice. So please come and sing again next time. And dear devotees, we've come to the end of our meeting today, Zoom meeting. I hope you all had a nice realization about what karma is all about. Next week, on a Saturday, we'll be meeting at 7 p.m. And the topic of discussion or the topic in the class will be all about Kartik. So please do join us next Saturday at 7 p.m. And the Prabhu who will be giving the class is based in Canada, Durgam Prabhu. So that's why I'm starting the class a bit later at 7 p.m. so that for him it's 2 p.m. in the afternoon. So once again, thank you all so much. Any final comments or realizations before we end the session? Anybody would like to say anything? Okay. So let's all say Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
So much, Mataji.
Thank you
Thank you,
so
Mataji.
much.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.